All right.
Whoa.
Um, Hello and welcome to the fifth Game of Stakes update. It's been a little while. I took a bunch of the last week off. I was at the Real World Cryptography Conference, and it was a little bit hectic to try and do Game of Stakes updates. Things have also been somewhat quiet. So yeah, it's the network's been real quiet on the Game of Stakes front, and but inside of Tendermint, we have been preparing some pretty significant updates to the Cosmos SDK. And when we given so for that reason, I invited Jack, who's the product manager on the Cosmos SDK product, to kind of come in and give you guys an update on what's planned for the hard fork. So he's going to talk a little bit about the features that are in motion. But once those features, once we talk about that, we'll go into a little bit more detail on what we are expecting the process to be, and how we're expecting Game of Stakes to end. And I'll also do a little bit towards the end talking about what we can do to make Game of Stakes a little bit more exciting and active.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction, Zaki. So as Zaki mentioned, we've been planning a hard fork for the Game of Stakes network roughly since the beginning. The only thing that's been kind of in doubt is what exactly that hard fork is going to entail. So after the relaunch over Christmas, the major features that we had remaining for launch were a rewrite of the distribution code. We've codenamed that F1. We've got a PR up with implementation that we will be merging for this hard fork. One of the really nice things about this code change is that from a client perspective, we're not changing any of the interfaces. So the same way that you would withdraw your rewards and restake them, that's not going to change. And in fact, one of the really nice things that this upgrade does leave a path forward for us is to enable automatic redelegation. So i.e., when you get those inflation rewards, they will be automatically redelegated for you as opposed to having to run those transactions yourself. It's a pretty big feature. It's going to be a major UX improvement, and it should increase stability on the distribution code. Some of you may have noticed that we've had issues there bring down previous testnets, so that was kind of the reason for the refactor.
Probably the biggest argument for why we wanted to get this feature into Game of Stakes has been that the developer team, and I think what pretty persuasively argues that this is a massive simplification of the code. And even though the older code has been through a lot of testing, both in terms of simulation, code review, many test nets, there is more confidence that this new code will be correct and bug free than the previous code. Though we are really going to be testing that hypothesis through this upgrade process.
Yeah, absolutely. And so along with state-breaking upgrades, Zaki has been working very hard on a translation script so that we can export and restart Game of Stakes from the existing state. And we were also planning on testing this change in a community testnet before we launch the Game of Stakes hard fork.
So specifically what I've been working on is I'm sure everyone experienced was incredibly painful during the Christmas holiday to be living in a world where in order to really test the export and upgrade process, we needed, coordination among, many or 200 183 validators. It was really scary, it was really stressful, and is completely unsustainable. So one of the things I've been working on is a modification to the export script that allows me to create test nets where only a subset of the validators, or you can basically export your genesis state, your state, search and replace a bunch of public keys to public keys that you control, and restart the network with 2 or 3 nodes, and run that network for a few thousand blocks and get a sense of whether or not the exported state integrated nicely into the new state machine. So that process is going to take a little bit of time to fully vet and test out this coming week. Also can't really dig in until more of the changes that we're expecting are in their final form.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another piece of it. One of the things, just kind of riffing off what Zaki was just talking about there, this testnet process has been wonderful for us to kind of figure out exactly what kind of tooling validators are going to need and how we're going to manage network upgrades on the live network. These learnings have been fantastic, and we're developing tooling for this export functionality to ensure that it's easier and easier, and passing these learnings on to other chains is going to be way easier, especially as we move closer to launch. The next major feature that we're looking to get in for the Game of Stakes hard fork is something we're calling Tombstone. So currently, if a validator gets jailed, we're keeping track of the list of all validators that have been jailed to ensure that they're not signing blocks. In order to eliminate this, we've made a change to the staking module where if you get jailed using your validator key once, we're going to revoke that validator key and you're never going to be able to use it again. This significantly simplifies a lot of staking code. I think it allowed us to take out a few hundred lines of code and some pretty crucial code paths, remarkably simplifying that.
I want to clarify something.
Yeah, and then Zaki, please speak to this Tombstone change as well.
I was rereading that. So you said something that I woke up in the middle of the night last night, all stressed about, and then went and read the spec. I haven't read the code, but jailing still exists. It just is there for currently liveness infractions and potentially in the future other infractions. For equivocations, where you have double signed, we do use this new Tombstone mechanism. And what the reason for that is for equivocations, we never have to consider old evidence. We never have to consider, or for liveness faults or other faults where we might jail you, we never have to consider old evidence. For equivocations, there is an almost 3-week window in the default settings of what we're planning to use for the hub, where evidence can be brought. And this becomes a challenge when we're considering evidence being submitted multiple times in an overlapping period for multiple faults that occur and correctly punishing a user. And so it enormously simplifies the code in the case of an equivocation fault to just essentially terminate the public key forever of the consensus node that faulted.
Thank you for the thorough explanation there, Zaki. This is a really nice feature, should really reduce the amount of issues we run into in this code in the future. So looking forward to that change. That has been merged. And as far as F1, the fee distribution specification we talked about earlier, we're waiting on one last round of reviews and changes before we go ahead and merge that. So that should be sometime this week. Another major feature we'll be shipping in the Game of Stakes hard fork is vesting. So as you can imagine, as a network operator, you might want to vest some coins for users to sort of gain the usage of over a number of years. This is a common way to hand out stock rewards or other incentivization for users to keep them around for a large number of years. The vesting code is going to control some atoms at launch. So that went through a nice 3-month review, spec development and review process, and was finally merged this weekend. So we're very excited about that. And I think those are the kind of the major features in this hard fork. We have a lot of smaller stuff. I've personally been working on the CLI user interface to ensure that flags are respected and things like that. And the Voyager team has done an excellent job updating the LCD and the REST endpoints to ensure that all the functionality that users need out of the CLI is also in the REST server, and the docs are updated there. So that's the thrust of the work for the hard fork and the 3 major features that we'll be shipping there.
So one of the things that we're going to do is when we're exporting this, when we're setting up the state for the update, we are going to be focused a little bit on. We're going to focus on the. We're going to focus on doing the. Whatchamacallit. We're going to have vesting. We're going to introduce some amount of vesting stake to every validator that they will be able to delegate to their validator, just to exercise the vesting code in Game of Stakes. So basically the game plan is when we get these last features merged, hopefully over the next day or so, we would be looking to launch a community testnet, testing out those features fairly rapidly. In parallel to that, I am going to be on my own independently testing a state exports process and a state and an upgrade process for Game of Stakes. At that point, there's going to be an official block height at which the Game of Stakes network will upgrade. And then after that block height, after that Game of Stakes network upgrade, we will. So then the next piece is basically once the upgrade is complete, this starts a 2-week clock at the end of which we are expecting to end Game of Stakes, barring any sort of vulnerability, any sort of flaw or vulnerability found in the state machine, which would cause a reset of that timeline. So we're definitely in the latter stages of. So as I'd mentioned in the beginning, the attack behavior on Game of Stakes has really calmed down. As we sort of started over the last week, we saw an initial flurry of sort of low-hanging fruit attacks. That's really kind of slowed down. So I think I'm looking at a couple of things. Right before we launched Game of Stakes, Jay sort of made my settings for the Game of Stakes a little less aggressive, and so I'm going to look into the possibility of potentially bringing back, for instance, a jailing period for liveness faults, and seeing if that incentivizes people to attack. I also think that I hope people will play a little harder, and because I'm watching closely to see live uptime and stake accumulation and other interesting behaviors for making final recommendation to the ICF. So that's pretty much that's the story of Game of Stakes for today. I'm not necessarily definitely going to do a Game of Stakes update tomorrow, but I will do one as we kind of approach seeing this upgrade happen. So I think the big milestone to watch is either watch the pull requests or watch for the community testnet start. That'll tell you that we're getting really close to the Game of Stakes upgrade.
And as far as pull requests, if folks are looking to watch those, 3099 is the fee distribution PR, and that's the major blocking PR. So if you want to check that out, go over and follow the work there. Also, Zaki, happy to join these in the future as well.
This was great having
fun. Yeah, and maybe we could do some Q&A. We could get people to send in Q&A.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know if I can turn on Q&A. Let me see if I can quickly do it. If it's too hard.
Oh yeah.
Because in the other format that doesn't allow
like when it's just you
when it's just me, I could easily do Q&A.
Yeah, this whole Hangouts on YouTube thing kind of
weird. Completely abandoned product.
Feels like black magic.
Yeah, I don't know. Because you used to be able to have to add a Q&A app, and then it's like, no, you can't do that.
Sounds about right. Anyway,
If anybody, let me quickly jump over into the Riot chat room and see if there are, if anybody wants to ask questions in the Game of Stakes room, I'll quickly look at it for like a few seconds. Is there any questions? If there are any questions, ask them in the Game of Stakes Riot channel.
I just posted a message there as well, so let's wait for a second.
Give it 30 seconds.
Yeah. If not, next time, definitely.
I don't see any questions.
So. Me neither. Maybe next time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Zaki, thank you very much for letting me join you, and looking forward to next time.
Yeah, this was great.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.